My daughter sold our house while I was away, but the deed turned out to be fake. Mark stood on the edge of the cliff, gazing out at the waves crashing below. The salty breeze whipped through his hair, and for the first time in months, he felt a flicker of peace. He had left the chaos of his life, the tension of a failing marriage, behind for this much-needed retreat. He just needed clarity, a breath of fresh air, to help him face the storm brewing back home. His thoughts were interrupted by the jarring sound of his phone ringing. The call came from an unfamiliar number, but something in his gut urged him to answer. "Hello," he said, bracing himself for whatever news awaited him. "Mr. Collins, we need to talk about your daughter, Julia." The voice was calm but edged with urgency. "She's sold your family home without your consent." He felt his heart drop. "What do you mean, sold?" His voice trembled, filled with disbelief. The family home, the one they had cherished since Julia was born, gone? She can't do that. She's only a college student. Anguish clawed at his chest, stinging like the ocean air. After a disorienting drive home, Mark confronted the front door, freshly painted but so unwelcoming. Inside, the air clung thick with memories. Their lives were etched into the walls, laughter, celebrations, even tears. Yet now there was something sinister lurking in every corner. Julia stood in the living room, her wide eyes filled with panic. "Dad, I can explain," she stammered, looking more like a deer in headlights than his spirited daughter. "Explain what? That you sold our house?" His voice cracked, the weight of betrayal spilling into every word. "It's not what you think," she insisted, a deep frown marring her brow. "I thought it would help us. The bills. Mom's been struggling. I wanted to hold on to something, to save us." Mark clenched his fists, his pulse racing. It didn't make sense. Hadn't they taught her better? The house was a sanctuary, not some pawn in a desperate game. He tore at the signed documents she held out, anger and heartbreak boiling over. But as he skimmed through the text, disbelief twisted his gut once more. The deed was an elaborate forgery. The signature wasn't his, the notary's seal a mockery. I... Julia's voice was a whisper now, regret washing over her face as she took a step back. What had she done? His hand grazed an old box tucked in the corner, dust dancing in the sunlight. Inside lay family photographs, cherished letters, remnants of a life they shared. But one document caught his eye, yellowed and fragile with age. The ink held promises of things long buried, secrets that could unravel their tangled lives. "Julia," he began, uncertainty tightening around his heart. "Why would you risk everything? What drove you to this?" As the shadows of the past flickered around them, he felt the walls closing in. Was the true fracture in their family hidden deeper than the surface chaos? Did he really know his daughter? "Dad, she began, fear flickering in her eyes. But the pounding in his chest drowned her out. Neither of them knew what the answers would reveal. Would the hidden truths bring them closer, or was this just the beginning of the end? Hey, before continuing with this incredible story, I have to warn you. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Quickly check that red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's about to drop. And while you're here, give me a big thumbs up. That really helps with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love meeting every amazing person who's part of this community. Your support means everything. Let's stay connected. Mark's heart pounded. Julia's words floated around them, heavy and suffocating. "You don't understand, Dad. I thought I could fix things." Her eyes darted, desperate. Moments stretched like taffy, the silence thick enough to cut through. The anger on his face melted into confusion, worry creeping into his mind like a slow poison. He needed answers, but the truth felt dangerously close. He stepped back, glancing around the living room, the space they shared. His fingers brushed against the dust on an old family photo, their smiling faces frozen in time. But that happiness felt like a distant memory now. "What is going on, Julia? You've crossed a line." The tremor in his voice didn't go unnoticed. "Dad, it was supposed to be a fresh start. I thought—" Her voice faded, as if the weight of the moment smothered her. Just then, a loud crash echoed from upstairs, a sudden shattering noise that jolted them both. Mark's heart skipped. What was that? He turned, instinct kicking in. Without waiting for an answer, he dashed up the stairs, Julia right behind him. The air was heavy, each step dragging him deeper into a nightmare. They reached the landing, breathless. Mark flung open the door to his bedroom, half expecting the worst. And there it was. A figure loomed in the room, dressed in black, busy rifling through his things. The sight struck him like a lightning bolt. "What the hell are you doing?" he yelled, voice thick with shock. The intruder turned, eyes wide, panic spilling over his face. Mark took a step back, every muscle in his body poised to fight. "Who are you?" "Wait, I'm not here to hurt you." The stranger's voice quivered. I'm looking for Julia." "What?" Mark felt the ground shift beneath him. "Yeah, we have to talk. I can explain." "Get out!" Julia shouted, pulling Mark back. Fear flashed in her eyes, and in that moment, it was clear this wasn't just some run-of-the-mill robbery. But the intruder stepped closer, fear in his eyes blending with something else, urgency. "You don't understand. The deed, Julia. It's not about the money. It's about your mom." Mark's breath hitched. "What does my wife have to do with this?" "Everything!" The intruder's voice broke, and suddenly Mark saw something. Recognition? "She sent me. She's—" Before he could finish, a loud thud sounded from downstairs. The front door burst open, and voices flooded in, police scrambling, rushing into the house. Mark's heart raced as he exchanged glances with Julia. Confusion morphed into pure terror. "What are they doing here?" he asked, slowly sinking into panic. "I don't know." Julia's voice was barely above a whisper. "Dad, this isn't what it looks like." But as the police stormed up the stairs, guns drawn, Mark felt a tide of fear. What was happening? What had Julia gotten herself into? And just as he was about to demand answers, everything shifted again. Two officers grabbed the intruder, pushing him to the floor. He shouted, "It's not me! It's your wife! She's hiding something!" Mark's heart stopped. The words echoed in his mind. His wife? What was going on? The chaos erupted around him, voices blended into a roar. "What did you do, Julia?" "Dad, please, think. She's the one who's been lying." In that moment, the foundation of everything he'd held dear began to shake. Would they ever find the truth, or had they already lost everything? The chaos around Mark swirled like a storm. He glanced at Julia, her wide eyes frantic, then back to the police, who pinned the intruder to the ground. "What do you mean, my wife?" Mark's voice cut through the noise, thick with disbelief. "Listen!" the intruder shouted, fear etched into his features. "You don't know the truth. Your wife, she's been hiding something big." "Shut it," one of the officers barked, tightening his grip on the intruder, but his eyes flickered to Mark, as if waiting for direction. Mark felt his world tilt. "What do you know about Nicole?" A moment of silence hung heavy in the air. The intruder's eyes darted between the officers and Julia. "I can't say it here. You have to trust me. There's more at stake." Julia stepped forward, trembling. "Dad, please, he's not lying. I swear. There's been a lot I didn't know." Mark's chest tightened. "What are you talking about?" His heart raced as confusion mixed with desperation. This isn't the time for games. Then everything exploded. A loud bang echoed through the house. Mark barely registered it before the front window shattered, raining glass like confetti. The officers jerked back, shouting into their radios. A figure rushed through the jagged opening, gun raised, a nameless threat shrouded in darkness. "Get down!" one officer shouted, his voice slicing through the chaos. Mark instinctively pulled Julia close, shielding her as adrenaline surged. The intruder scrambled to his feet, panic flashing in his eyes. "No, it's not about you!" He lunged toward the unknown assailant, but the officers were quicker. They tackled him away, leaving Mark and Julia vulnerable in the fray. Then time stopped. "Mom!" Julia screamed, breaking through the noise. Mark's gut twisted. "What?" It slipped out in a breath, a sinking realization in his chest. "Mom sent him!" she cried, voice strained. "She's mixed up in something dangerous!" The words hit Mark like a physical blow. "What do you mean?" Julia trembled, her voice catching. "I found her files, Dad. Secrets about money, illegal deals. I thought if I sold the house, we could escape. I never thought—" Another crack echoed through the air, and chaos erupted again. The dark figure lunged at them, and Mark pushed Julia away, ready to protect the only person that mattered. In that instant, everything shattered. A shot rang out, piercing the room. The world slowed. Mark felt the air thicken, a scream lodged in his throat. He turned, eyes wide, but his vision blurred. "Julia!" he gasped as she crumpled to the ground, her body limp. Panic overwhelmed him. "No, no!" He rushed to her side, cradling her head, blood pooling beneath her. The officers rushed around, confusion and terror painting every face, but Mark's entire world crumbled into silence. "Julia, stay with me!" But she didn't respond. Her eyes fluttered, drifting away. "Mark!" one officer shouted, rushing to them. But the world faded into a haunting silence as the depth of the moment sank in. With everything that had just unfolded, the deed, the secrets, it all suddenly felt like a game they were too late to play. What had he missed? What did he not see? And how many more secrets lay buried under the weight of a family's love? As he held Julia, feelings of dread clawed at him. Was there any coming back from this? As the darkness closed in, Mark couldn't help but wonder, had he lost his daughter to the truth he could never fully grasp? Mark held Julia tightly, the warmth of her body contrasting sharply with the cold panic spreading through him. He could hear the chaos of the officers around him, their voices rising and falling, desperate yet frantic. He needed help. He needed answers. "Julia, please stay with me." His own voice felt foreign, trembling and hollow. Then a stillness took over, a quiet so heavy it felt like a weight pressing down. The paramedics burst in, and suddenly the air shifted. It was like a dam had broken, letting confusion flood back in. "Get her on the stretcher," one officer shouted. "It's bad," another added, the urgency biting through the air. Praying, Mark squeezed Julia's hand. "Don't you dare leave me! Fight, Jules!" But her eyelids fluttered, and the light in her eyes began to dim. A sudden commotion rattled everyone. Mark turned to see the intruder breaking free from the grasp of the officers. In that instant, fear turned into a flash of anger. "What do you want?" he shouted. But the man was already pushing past the officers, eyes wide and frenzied. "Don't let him get away," one of the officers yelled. But before anyone could react, the man pointed toward Julia. "It's too late. You don't know. Your wife, she—" His voice cut off as an officer tackled him, and chaos erupted again. Mark's heart raced. "What does my wife have to do with any of this?" he shouted, panic gripping him. The man struggled against the officer, desperation etched across his features. Your wife is involved in something bigger. She didn't just let Julia sell the house, she needed to keep the truth hidden. Stop! Another officer shoved the intruder down, silencing him. We're not playing this game. Mark had never felt so lost. Everything was spinning, a whirlwind of emotions tearing through him. He glanced back at Julia, more aware of the blood soaking his hands and staining the floor. The sight sent a fresh wave of panic crashing into him. Please, just save her. But suddenly, a voice broke through the noise, clear and sharp. Mark! It was Nicole, standing at the top of the stairs, eyes wide with shock. His heart plummeted. What are you doing here? I came as soon as I heard, she shouted back. But there was something in her eyes, fear, mixed with something darker, something that gnawed at his gut. Mark shifted his focus to her. You sent him, didn't you? What? She looked taken aback, a mask of confusion covering her face. But he saw it, the flicker of something behind that mask, a shadow lurking. Why would you send someone to threaten our daughter? His voice was rising, a cocktail of betrayal and fear. Nicole stepped closer, her hands moving nervously. I didn't want to. I thought it was for the best. You thought? He snapped. What are you hiding? Stop! The officers looked between them, the tension sizzling in the air. Nicole took a deep breath. Mark, it's not what you think. I had to. But he could feel the ground shifting under him. What does that even mean? Was this all your plan? Mark, please, I can explain everything, just not here. Before she could ask more, she continued, her voice trembling. I was protecting you, protecting Julia. She could have ended up in far deeper trouble. You don't know the whole. But then the other officer interrupted, staring at Nicole with grim recognition. You've got to be kidding me. Mark's heart raced. What do you mean? Then, with a voice heavy with disbelief, the officer blurted out, She's connected to all this. Her name, it's linked to the case. You're in danger, Mark. A wave of nausea hit him. Everything felt shattering. What are you saying? Nicole's face paled, as if the truth had been snatched from her own grasp. No, it can't be. I didn't think. The room swirled, the walls closing in. Mark's trust, his world, unraveled before him. What else are you hiding? Before she could answer, the lights above flickered. The house seemed to breathe, the air thick with unspoken truths. He looked at Julia, barely conscious, and felt the tremors of reality crashing down upon him. Had he built a home on lies this whole time? Nothing made sense, but one thought took root. Who was the person he thought he knew? And what dark secrets lay buried in the fragile foundation of their family? Where did he go from here? Would the truth destroy him? All that remained was a terrifying silence as the shadows of his life loomed larger than ever. Mark's world swirled in chaos, a tempest of emotions twisting everything he thought he knew. He looked back at Nicole, her face pale amidst the shouts, tears flooding her eyes. You need to tell me the truth now. But before she could gather her thoughts, a commotion erupted outside. The front door slammed open again, and uniformed figures poured in. FBI agents, badges glinting, shoving into the already crowded space. "Everybody move!" one shouted, commanding attention, his voice cutting through the panic like a knife. Mark felt his pulse quicken. What was happening? "Dad, please," Julia murmured weakly, her voice barely reaching him over the chaos. "Help me." "No, no!" Panic gripped him hard. He focused on Julia, her face so pale, the crimson pool beneath her growing ever wider. The lead agent stepped closer. "You need to step back, sir. This is an active investigation." "Investigation? What are you talking about?" Mark's head spun. "My daughter." "The woman you're with. the agent interrupted, pointing sharply at Nicole, is not who you think she is. Mark's heart sank. The words dripped with accusation. What do you mean? She's my wife. Listen, sir, the agent pressed, urgency furrowing his brow. We have reason to believe your wife is involved with a syndicate. A loud crash interrupted. One of the officers guarding the intruder suddenly swung his arm, sending the intruder crashing against the wall, dislodging something that had been hidden in his clothing. A flash of silver gleamed as he seized it, a hidden weapon. Gunshots rang out. Everything erupted into chaos again as Mark dropped to the ground, instinct pushing him to shield Julia. The world blurred, noise drowning reason. He felt Nicole grab his arm, panic spilling from her eyes, but the moment was fractured by sheer horror. Julia's breath hitched. Dad, it hurts. Mark's heart clenched, his mind racing. Stay with me, Jules, please. But the agents weren't done. We need to contain the situation. They moved to secure the room, but another agent shouted, Get the door! We have to get them out! Out? Out of where? Mark choked on fear and confusion. What do you mean? Just then, in the frenzy, he caught a whisper from the intruder, barely audible. Your wife has been running this from the start, and she sent me to keep Julia safe. You have no idea what's going on. Everything froze. Mark's breath caught as the air shifted, a dagger of dread piercing through him. What? The room turned silent for a heartbeat, then exploded again, the officers hastily running to corral the threat. But Mark could only stare at Nicole, the woman he thought he knew, the mother he thought was innocent. Her expression was a mixture of fear and something deeper, something that felt like betrayal. What did he mean? Mark's voice trembled, cracking under the pressure of truth. What were you hiding? Before she could answer, another outside commotion surged inside. The back door erupted in a flurry of chaos. A figure stepped forward, silhouetted against the dim light of the setting sun. A familiar face emerged with a wild look. It was someone Mark never expected to see. Mom? The word hung in the air as Mark's heart dropped. Mark's mother, the matriarch who had held their family together, now stood there, her eyes wide with something akin to terror. Mark, you need to listen to me. No! Mark felt as if the ground had vanished beneath him. What are you doing here? Why now? I didn't want to, she gasped, and he could see the fear in her face. It's all connected. Your wife, Julia. There are dangers you don't understand. The moment felt dense, a suffocating mix of truth and lies. Everything's been a lie? Mark's voice quivered as he turned from his mother to Nicole, the weight crashing down on him. Mark. Nicole's voice was barely a whisper as the room spun around him. His mind reeled. Was anyone true? With every word, every glance, he felt like a marionette with its strings cut. As the tension thickened and truths beckoned to be revealed, Mark felt a rush of desperation. He had been blind, but now it all hung on the precipice, threatening to tip into darkness. What had his family become? What secrets lay beneath the surface? His heart raced, the world around him fading into a blur as the fabric of his life threatened to unravel completely. And as he held Julia tight, all he could think was anyone ever truly safe? Mark held Julia close, his heart pounding harder with each shallow breath she took. The chaos of the room blurred into a distant noise, the officers shouting orders, the flashing lights creating a surreal scene. He focused on Julia, how pale she was, how the warmth was slipping away from her. Stay with me, Jules, just hold on. Nicole stood close, her eyes filled with an understandable panic. Mark, I swear I can explain, just give me a chance. But an overwhelming feeling of betrayal surged through him, blocking any coherent thought. There was too much happening, Too many secrets unveiled in a matter of minutes. How could you do this? He whispered more to himself, the weight of her unspoken truths choking him. Mark, an officer yelled, snapping him back to reality. We need you to step outside for your own safety. Safety? His voice shook. What was safe anymore? As they pulled him toward the door, his gaze stayed locked on Julia. The paramedics were finally at her side, but he couldn't shake the feeling that time was slipping away like sand. Then, a shout rang out from the front of the house.
Police! Everyone down! Mark turned just in time to see agents burst in, each one shouting commands, shoving their way through the crowd. The commotion grew, soldiers of law, all in a state of alarm. In the cacophony, a shadow slipped through, unnoticed. He barely registered what happened next. Suddenly, there was a loud crash as a figure lunged toward Nicole. You thought you could hide forever. Everything froze for a heartbeat. The intruder was back, his eyes wild with desperation. Yet instead of fleeing, it was directed at Nicole now. You sent me to silence them. Mark's heart raced, pumping fury and confusion through his veins. What is happening? Shut up, the officer barked. But Mark couldn't keep quiet. Silence who? He demanded, eyes darting between the intruder and Nicole. The chaos reached a boiling point when the stranger shouted, I was supposed to keep them safe, but you messed it all up. What? Mark felt sick. What do you know about my family? But the intruder only shook his head, the panic rising. You don't understand. Your wife is... And before he could finish, a deafening gunshot rang through the air. Time slowed. The room was filled with screams. Mark instinctively jumped forward, only to see Nicole collapse, blood blooming on her shirt. No! It tore from Mark's throat, raw and primal. The officers surged forward, the room collapsing into utter chaos as they tackled the intruder, yelling instructions to one another. But all Mark saw was Nicole, crumpling to the floor. Mark, she gasped, clutching her side. I didn't mean to. He dropped to his knees beside her, feeling the world fracture beneath him. Help! Someone help! The plea tore from him as he pressed his hands against her wound, but the life ebbed from her eyes. Everything was, it's not what you think, she whispered, her breath coming in short gasps. Mark's heart raced with the enormity of it all, each heartbeat echoing in his ears. What do you mean? What else is there? And with those final words, the truth crashed down. Mark, she began, her voice faltering. But just as he thought she might explain, her eyes went vacant. She gasped, the light blinking out. I'm so sorry. The air froze. Silence enveloped them, heavy and suffocating. Mark couldn't breathe. It felt like everything had imploded. All those fond memories intertwined with betrayal right in front of him. His dreams turned to nightmares, unraveling in an instant. The officer shouted commands, but they all faded into a blur, a wash of colors and sounds extinguished by his growing horror. He stayed knelt beside Nicole, shock festering in his bones. The chaos around him morphed into slow motion as he kept staring, waiting for some kind of miracle. What had happened? Was there even a way to come back from this? The only question echoing in his mind was suffocating. What had he missed? And what secrets had he yet to uncover? Mark knelt on the floor, desperate, holding Nicole in his arms. Time had frozen, the world blurred around him. The chaos of officers shouting, the thoughts racing, it all melted into a dark silence as he watched her eyes flicker, fighting to stay open. Help! Someone help! His voice came out a raw whisper, thick with dread. The blood pooled beneath her, stark and terrifying. He could hear sirens now, wailing in the distance, blending with the abrupt gasps of the onlookers, every stare burning through him like hot coals. Please, he cried again, but the paramedics were still struggling to reach them. Nicole's breath hitched. Mark, But the light in her eyes dimmed, fading fast. He felt panic rise in his throat, his heart racing. "Don't you dare leave me, not like this!" Suddenly, he felt a shudder run through her body. "Mark, I loved you." The words tumbled out like a last breath, heavy and laced with regret. He shook his head, tears blurring his vision. "No, don't say that, just fight!" But she gasped, a final tremor coursing through her as she let out a long sigh. Her head lolled back, and the warmth drained from her frame. The world shattered into fragments. He felt as if the ground had opened up, swallowing him whole. "No, no!" A part of him was screaming to wake up from this nightmare. He wanted to shake her, to bring her back. He could barely comprehend the sirens now, splashing red light over the chaos around them. The paramedics finally rushed in, pushing Mark aside. "We need to stabilize her, clear the area." They didn't even look at him, just focused on the woman who had given him everything and now lay lifeless in front of him. But before they could even begin, another sound broke through the frenzy. A heavy thud above, furniture crashing as if from an explosion. "Get to cover," someone shouted, but Mark didn't move. He was rooted to the spot, staring at Julia, who lay small and so frail as the officers finally secured the room. Then came the scream, a voice he recognized too well. It pierced through the chaos. "Mark!" It was his mother, surging forward with fear written all over her face. "You have to listen. It's not over. There's in the attic. You have to know." "What? Know what?" Mark turned, his mind racing, but everything felt surreal, as if the walls fluctuated with the echoes of horror. The officers were suddenly frantic, calling into their radios. "We have a breach." He turned back to the chaos behind him, just in time to hear another crash as the front window shattered. A dark figure slipped through the jagged opening, cloaked in shadows. Mark's heart raced with fear again. Who is that? But it was what came next that ripped through him like a jagged knife.
The figure dropped to the floor, unmasking itself as a woman who looked exactly like Nicole, but with a hardness in her features that felt all wrong. "You didn't think I wouldn't find you, did you?" Mark stumbled back, mouth agape. "What? Who are you?" "Your real wife," the woman said, her voice chilling. "And I'm here to take what's mine." The crowd gasped collectively. Shockwaves ran through Mark like electric currents. "What do you mean?" "Nicole," the woman said, gesturing to the limp form on the floor, "was the decoy. She was always meant to keep you away from the truth." His heart raced. "Truth? What truth? What are you talking about?" But the officers couldn't contain the scene now. Suddenly, everything shifted. They were rushing to the woman who looked like Nicole, hands reaching. "Stop!" Mark's voice cracked, splitting through the confusion. "Don't let her get away!" But the sirens blared in full force now, drowning everything else out. It felt surreal to see his world collapse around him. Friends, family, chaos, an alternate reality rushing towards him like a tidal wave. "Mom!" Julia gasped weakly, and all the air rushed out of Mark. "Stay with me, Julia, both of you. We can figure this out." But Mark could feel everything slip away, the things he cared about shattering. Nothing made sense anymore. Dark truths and hidden agendas swirling like a storm. He wanted answers, but all that echoed in his mind was his mother's frantic cry, a haunting reminder that everything he'd known was a lie. What have I done? As the paramedics fought to secure Nicole and the officers struggled to contain chaos, Mark realized he was standing on the edge of a chasm, teetering into the unknown. What awaited him was a darkness he never wanted to face. Mark felt the ground beneath him quaking. The chaos spun heavier as he hovered over Nicole, the truth clawing at his insides. He caught a glimpse of his mother, standing wide-eyed, whispering something he couldn't hear above the turmoil. "Mom!" he shouted, desperation tightening his chest.
But before his mother could reach him, the room erupted into a flurry of action again. "Secure the area," an agent yelled, pushing past the chaos. The officers formed a circle around Nicole's crumpled body, gripping their weapons tightly. Mark's heart raced, a feeling of dread settled in the pit of his stomach. Then came a shrill scream, slicing through the noise. "Mark, get down!" He didn't even catch where the warning came from before he felt a sudden shove. Someone had tackled him from the side, sending him sprawling to the floor. As a gunshot rang out, the sound echoed loudly, reverberating through the crowd, followed by the crack of shattering glass. Instinctively, Mark covered his head, but all he could focus on was the shrill cry of his daughter. "Mom!" Julia shouted again, her voice laced with confusion and fear. He pushed himself up, heart pounding as he scanned the scene.
A figure, a shadowy silhouette, sprinted away from the commotion, darting through the back door. "Stop! Police!" an officer yelled, but the figure kept running, arms flailing as if desperate to escape whatever truck was about to hit them. Why is this happening? Mark thought, haunted by the questions spiraling in his mind. Just when things couldn't feel heavier, a piercing sound ripped through the air, a shriek that seemed to come from both his mother and Julia. Mark rushed to stand, adrenaline coursing through him. What is happening? Someone explain! But he was cut off by the sound of sirens screeching closer, a cacophony merging with the chaos inside the house. "Mark, look out!" a voice suddenly shouted, and instinctively he turned to see the intruder, the one who looked like Nicole, lunging toward him. His instincts kicked in, he stumbled back. But then, out of nowhere, his mother stepped forward. "No!" she shouted, her face twisted in fear. Before Mark could piece it all together, his mother threw herself in front of him as the figure swung a knife, sending both of them tumbling to the ground. "Mom!" Mark yelled, terror gripping him as he watched her fall. The agent sprang into action, but Mark could only focus on his mother, a gasp escaping his lips as he knelt beside her. "What are you doing?" Her shallow breaths echoed in his ears. "Mark, I didn't," she coughed, eyes flickering, filled with a mix of regret and something deeper. But there was no time to settle into that horror. Out of the corner of his eye, he spotted Julia behind the medics, collapsing against the wall, tears streaming down her face. "Get away from her! Someone help my family!" Then came the bombshell, a low growl rumbling from the depths of a distant corner. It was almost animalistic, primal. Mark felt his skin crawl as he turned to face it. A metal door slammed open, revealing another figure, this one larger, scarred, eyes burning with rage. "I know everything!" The voice was guttural, a low rumble that seemed to shake the very foundation of the house. Mark's heart dropped. "Who are you?" Suddenly, the world tilted again. "What?" "Your mother. She's been working with me," the figure hissed, advancing. His voice turned to a growl. "For years, she's been the mastermind of this whole operation. You're all just pawns." The revelation hit Mark like a freight train. "No, that can't be. My mother?" But the real shock came after. As the agents tackled the intruder, the truth rushed back, crashing over him like a tidal wave. All the love, every memory suddenly skewered into a playground of deception. How had he not seen it? And in that moment, everything shattered. "What have you done?" he pleaded, turning desperately to his mother, who lay bleeding before him. The reality lashed like a whip, a betrayal deeper than anything he could have imagined. "Mark," she whispered, the life fading from her eyes. "I wanted to protect you." But the truth hung like a noose, tightening around him. Had his whole life been built on lies? Would he ever be safe again? Mark knelt beside Nicole, the blood pooling beneath her body, a warm tide soaking through his hands. "Mom!" he cried, voice breaking as he cradled her head.
He'd never felt so helpless, like the world had dropped from beneath him. The chaos swirled in a haze of sirens and shouting, but all he could focus on were Nicole's fading breaths. "Mark, I didn't mean for it to end this way." Her voice was a whisper, trembling with the weight of too many unspoken words. He could see the light in her eyes dimming, the flicker of life slipping away. "Don't say that! Just stay with me! Help is coming!" He shook his head, fighting back tears that threatened to spill over. Yet, in that tumultuous moment, everything around him erupted again. The figure that had looked like Nicole, the one with the twisted grin, leaned against the doorframe, surveying the chaos as if she were watching a play unfold. "I told you it was all a lie," she sneered, voice dripping with confidence. "Your mother had her secrets, and she did a damn good job at hiding them." "Stop!" Mark shouted, the fissures in his heart cracking wider. "What do you know? Who the hell are you?" "Oh, I'm just an echo of your worst nightmare," the figure replied, shrugging as the chaos unfolded around her. "But more importantly, I'm the one who's going to finish this." A deafening silence fell, tension twisting in the air. Everyone turned, the officers and paramedics, their movements suddenly slowed as they processed her words. "Who do you think you are?" barked one of the agents, gun raised but trembling slightly. Then, like dominoes falling, she flung something into the air. It glimmered as it turned, a small metallic object that landed with a click on the floor. A grenade. "My friends are coming to collect," she grinned, her eyes alight with a manic brilliance. Panic surged through the crowd. "Get back!" someone yelled before chaos erupted. Mark felt the ground tremble beneath him as officers scrambled, shouting commands, faces paling at the sight of the device. His breath caught in his throat as they hurled themselves between the figure and the growing threat. "Run!" The cry came from somewhere, but Mark didn't move. He couldn't, not while Nicole lay there, fighting for breath. "No! Someone help!" he screamed, but the world slipped into disarray. The figure laughed, a chilling sound that resonated against the panic. "She was never going to be saved. I've taken everything from you, and now I'll take you too." But then something shifted. A smoke bomb burst, thick and dark, filling the air with a noxious cloud. Mark choked, eyes watering as he struggled to see through the chaos. Then, all of a sudden, a familiar voice cut through the shouts and cries. "Mark, over here!" Julia was fighting her way through the throng, her small body moving with purpose even as she stumbled.
"What are you doing? Get out of here!" "Dad!" She reached for him as if he were slipping away. "We need to go, now!" But he couldn't tear himself away. "Jules, I can't leave her. Please, you have to." Her voice cracked, fire burning in her eyes. "She's not who you think she is." Suddenly, Mark felt icy fingers tightening around his heart. "What do you mean?" "Mom she isn't who she says she is. She's part of it." The ground seemed to tremble beneath him, the truth washing over him like cold water. "What are you talking about?" Before she could answer, the grenade exploded, sending a wall of heat and force crashing through the room. Mark barely registered the sound of shattering glass and screams before he was thrown backward, air knocked from his lungs. Coughing, he rolled onto his stomach, eyes darting around for Julia. In the dense smoke, he spotted her, kneeling beside an officer who'd fallen. The familiar figure in the shadows was gone. The world spun in an electric haze of chaos, and as confusion flooded the scene, Mark felt reality shattering around him. Julia's words echoed in his ears, secrets spilling, pleading for explanation. What had he done? What had he missed? As sirens howled outside, all he could feel was darkness closing in, the weight of betrayal heavier than any explosion.
And he realized in that fleeting moment he was left clinging to a thread of a life he no longer recognized. What else lay before him? What truths remained buried beneath the ashes of a life now distorted by smoke and mirrors? Mark knelt on the floor, panic rising as smoke seeped into his lungs. He was lost in a whirlwind of confusion and fear. The air was thick, the world around him spinning as he struggled to comprehend the chaos. Julia was calling his name, but all he could see was the blur of blue and red lights flashing through the haze. He couldn't leave her, not now. Through the smog, he caught glimpses of chaos, officers directing people to safety, paramedics rushing in with a stretcher, shouts echoing off the walls. His vision darted back and forth, trying to make sense of it all, while his heart pounding like a freight train. "Julia, come on!" he cried, reaching for her. But just as he started to rise, something pierced through the confusion. An ear-splitting explosion erupted just behind him, rattling his bones. The ground shook violently, knocking him off balance. A flash of bright light momentarily blinded him. People screamed, and the air exploded with panic. Mark hit the floor, covering his head, desperate to shield Julia from harm. "Get down!" someone shouted, but it all felt so surreal, so distant. Just as he regained his footing, the screams swelled, and he could feel the heat. The smell of smoke and acrid fumes wrapped around him. His heart was racing as he scrambled to see through the swirling chaos. Through the haze, he spotted Julia being pulled away by a medic. "No!" he yelled, fingers clawing at the air. But before he could get to her, the crowd surged like a wave. Barriers erected to contain the damage. Everything felt slow. The edge of fear was sharp, the lives at stake so fragile. Just then, the figure that looked like Nicole stepped forward, the manic gleam in her eye unchanged by the mayhem around her. "Your family. They were never safe," she spat, her tone serrated with malice. "I did what I had to do." Mark felt the temperature drop, ice creeping into his veins. "What do you mean?" But before she could respond, the officers reacted, attempting to surround her. That's when he heard it, a whirring sound, the kind you associate with danger. Reflexively, Mark turned, eyes darting in the direction of the noise. Suddenly, a black vehicle roared into the driveway, tires screeching against pavement. A man bolted from the car, his face a mask of anger and desperation. "Stop!" he shouted, brandishing a weapon, its cold steel glinting menacingly in the light. Time froze. Mark felt as if the entire world stopped breathing. His blood ran cold. "Put that down!" one officer yelled, guns raised. But the man's eyes were focused on Nicole, his face twisted with betrayal. "You were supposed to keep them safe," he bellowed, "not drag them into your mess." What mess? Mark's head spun. Who was this guy? The chaos felt alive around him, bubbling with urgency. Nicole stepped back, looking cornered but defiant. "I had to keep my family safe. You can't understand." "He's right. You've lied to everyone." The man's voice cracked, eyes now watering with despair. "You've been selling secrets, using Julia to shield yourself." His words echoed like shattering glass. In that moment, everything shifted. Mark felt reality teeter on the edge, every lie, every trust he'd cherished crashing down. "What? What did you do?" he gasped, realization crashing over him. But the man stepped closer, raising his weapon. "You need to know the truth, Mark. Your wife isn't who you think she is." Before Mark could react, there was a loud crack as the weapon discharged. The crowd gasped, jaws dropping in horror. And then, silence. Mark turned, heart in his throat. But it wasn't Nicole who had fallen. It was his mother, collapsing to the ground, the light in her eyes extinguished forever. "Mom, no!" he screamed, rushing forward. The world fell away. Questions faded. Only one thing mattered now, the devastating truth that had just shattered his world. Had he lost everything?